Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jace of the Forestry Project. In today's video, I'm going to be starting to restore the oak savanna that we have on the property, or establish the oak savanna, I guess you would say, behind me. When we think about an oak savanna, there's not many in the Alabama area that I'm aware of. Now, I'm going to put up a picture. This is an area that we went to last summer when I had to go give a presentation for my research. And this was up in Michigan. It was very neat to go see. But as you can see in the picture, it's open, there's grasses, there's hardwood trees, there's a few native wildflowers in there, and I hope to get those established as well. So let's start thinking about what tree species we might want to get out on the property. As the name oak savanna implies, we do want some oaks. Now, not just oaks, we do want to have some other hardwoods as well out there. But let's think about what species we might want. So in trees, especially on the bark, you're going to have either thick bark or thin bark. Now, your thin barked trees, say like your maples, aren't going to do well in frequent fires. Same goes for dogwood, beech, a few other trees that they're not going to do well in fire, versus there's some oak trees, persimmons. If you think about pines, let's look at how the bark differs between trees to see what we think might be out here and what might not after a few burns. So if you look at this tree here, it's very thin, slick bark, and it doesn't take much and it would go through it. Whereas if you look at this pine tree here, this pine tree has very thick, platy bark, and it's protected. The real life of the tree, the cambium layer, is down in behind all of this bark. The same goes for this oak right here. So you can see the thicker bark starting to firm. So that's what we're looking for when we're trying to decide what tree species we want. Now, when we're discussing tree species, that brings up a very interesting point I want to talk about. So if we're out in here, there's essentially two ways we can try to start getting this back to an oak savanna. So the first thing we know we've got to do is start clearing out some of the overstory, cutting down a few pines. Now, I'm not going to cut down all of them to begin with, and I'm going to be trying to figure out a few different tests to see how to best get rid of the pines to benefit the wildlife at the same time. But let's think about what species we're going to try to get out here and get this area restored. I've got a few seedlings that I'm going to plant. We've got some sourwood from the tree sale that I'm going to get planted out here and discuss a little bit of how to plant those. I'll talk about what to do if you have not burned yet, and how we're going to protect our sourwood trees before we burn. As you can see, I've got a little area picked out. We're going to start planting some sourwood. Dad just cut down a few trees, trimmed up some branches. So now we're going to go through and talk about clearing the area for burning and prepping for the trees. So if you remember, I've talked all about this stand will be frequent fires, but we haven't had a chance to get a fire. There's an owl hooting, that's cool. We haven't had a chance to get a fire through there yet. So we want to protect our seedlings so that when the fire does come through, we don't just kill whatever we plant. So we're going to do that by clearing out an area around each of the seedlings so that there won't be any material to burn. So let's think about a few of the tools that we might use for that from our tools video. When we're thinking about clearing out an area, and we talked about in the tool video, either what you see behind me, my leaf blower, or I have our rake here. So we're going to clear a few areas. I've got about 20 sourwood, and I'm not going to show you clearing out each one. That'd be way too monotonous. But I'm going to show you a side-by-side comparison of what it looks like using a leaf blower versus a rake, time difference, so that you can see, you know, which one you might want to consider, and whether or not one is more beneficial than the other. So let's get into it and see real quick how the leaf blower does first. So now we've got this little area cleared out. You can see it didn't take very long at all with the leaf blower. I think it did a very good job. Now, it might be something right before we burn. I might come back in and blow it out a little bit more just to make sure no new needles have fallen. But this just gets a lot of the debris out of the way. Now, we might consider when we start to burn thinking about maybe coming in and creating a little ring. Go ahead and burn that ring. And that way you have no fuel, everything's burnt, and then what would be coming in, so it'd be a little bit less chance of us burning the seedling. So now let's go and let's see what it looks like when we rake out an area and check some of the differences. So let's try the rake and see how it does. So you can see, we're starting to get an area cleared out. Now, let's think about tools for a second. So, in the tools video, we talked about cost, and that every tool is going to have a time cost and a monetary cost. So, the rake is a lot cheaper than the leaf blower is monetarily. But if I were to go through and rake each one of these, it would take a lot longer. So it is more expensive time-wise. And not to say either's better than the other, the best tool is the one that you can get. So, if you can afford a leaf blower, that's perfectly fine. You can get these rakes very cheap, and you can do a lot of great stuff with the rake. But we're going to go back through and look at each of our plots and see what the ground looks like on each comparative from the rake to the leaf blower. So this is the area that we have raked, and you can see it's fairly decent. You know, we got up most of the debris, so I think what this is right here is going to be fine. So here is the leaf blower spot, and you can see, to me, I see a little bit less debris in here, but both of them are going to do the job. Now, if you notice, this area is a little bit bigger just because it is easier and faster with the leaf blower. So there is certain benefits to using the leaf blower if you already have one. So we're going to go ahead and clear a few more spots for the sourwood trees, and then I'll show you getting into planting them. If you want to watch a video specific to tree planting and how to use a dibble to plant trees, I recommend watching our tree planting video. We walk you through how to use a dibble, what to think about as far as location using the Seedlings manual, and then testing out what we think about tree cubes, and we'll continue and follow that up, and then we'll go in and show some of the after effects later on. So if you want to check out trees and tree planting, that would be the video to watch. But we're going to go in, we're going to clear out some more of these areas, and then we'll look at planting the sourwood specifically and some things we're going to test with them. Now let's talk about some things we're going to do to test our seedlings. So we've got about 20 sourwood seedlings that we're going to be planting today, and similar to the tree planting video, I've got my dibble here to plant. So in some areas, when I was talking to the Forestry Commission, when I was buying these seedlings, a gentleman recommended that I cut some of the seedlings down below the limbs to see how much better they grew compared to one that hadn't been cut. He said it would grow a lot better. I'm very curious about that because I'm always interested in learning new stuff about it. So here at the Forestry Project, we have designed a test. So what we're going to do is we have 4 different plots with 8 trees, and we've split them up. One set is going to be in the upland on a ridge line. One set is going to be over on a south-facing slope. We have a set going on a north-facing slope, and then we have a set going in a little creek drainage area down. It's still in the oak savanna area, but it's draining into what eventually becomes the Bracosin. So we're going to see how these trees behave, cut versus not cut. There will be 2 trees planted side by side, and we're hoping for similar growing conditions sunlight wise, and we will see how the trees compare cut versus not cut versus whether it is on an upland, a lowland, a south, or a north facing slope. Now if you remember from the Seedlings video, we talked about the north facing slopes are going to get a little bit less intense sunlight than your south facing slopes in your northern hemisphere. So we will see how the seedlings compare cut versus non-cut for each of those conditions. So we've got most of the seedlings planted. We're on our last test plots, checking them out, and I just wanted to show you 2 seedlings that we have and look at how we can test each comparatively. So I've picked out 2 of our sourwood seedlings. Here and here, and you can see they have very similar root structure. So let's look at the tops. Now this one's straight, and this one's got a little bit of branching on it. So what I'm curious about is it just the lack of branching, or is there something to cutting it off? So we've got very similar roots, fairly similar in height, realistically. If you look at where they come out of the ground, they're about the same height. You can see about the same height. So we're going to take and we're going to cut this one right above the tape, and we'll leave this one whole and see which do better on sites about 15 feet apart, very similar growing conditions, and see. Then once we get these planted, we'll finish up the last test plot, and that will conclude the sourwood planting on the oak savanna stand, and we'll start looking at what to do next. All right, so we have clipped this seedling off, and you can see we're standing at the seedling. You can see right over there, right in front of the water tank, is our other seedling. So you can see they're not far apart. And if we go over here and look at this one, it's not cut. And they had very similar roots. So we can see how these compare based off of cutting, but very similar length, roots, and all of that. So we'll see how those progress through time. We have finished planting all the seedlings, and we'll be doing some before and after pictures for these. So I'm going to go in, and to measure all of our seedlings, I will be using a diameter measurement at the base of the stem, and I'll show that in another video. And we're going to be using calipers, I think, right now. I think that's going to be the best way to do it, and just take, say, 3 or 4 measurements around, average those, and get our number. And then instead of doing height per se, I'm going to be taking pictures and seeing the growth rates between the clipped stems and the not clipped stems. So we'll get to track that. So we've planted the sourwoods. That was our big mission for this time. We're starting to work on the trail to clear it out and get our fire break going around. So let's think about some of the next things that we have to do on kind of the management plan side of it. The next thing to do would be, get closer to burning this, keep removing invasives, and then once we start burning parts, try to get some grasses to grow. And we have a few different ideas for that, we'll see, but that'll just kind of be a time tell and a little bit of a learning experience. So with that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the restoration work that we're doing toward the oak savanna, and I look forward to showing you the progress as we continue on. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with family and friends, like and comment. Comment what ecosystems that you're trying to manage for, or any ideas that you have for stuff that we might want to consider on the oak savanna stand. So with that, guys, thank you for watching. Until next time, happy management and God bless.